Hello, everybody. How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to the live stream. I am incredibly excited today because I'm here with Heather Martinez, one of the I consider the lettering celebrities out there in the world. That I'm just excited that she was willing to come in and join me here on a live stream today. So I'm excited to see everybody that's here in the chat. I'll say a quick hello. Howdy. Heather's already here. Greetings, Stacy. Wonderful to see you again. One of my friends from Blackletter Boot Camp and Yogi. So wonderful to see everybody. So I'm gonna bring Heather in so we don't waste any more time, and then she can say hello to everybody as well. So I'm gonna switch over, and you'll see Heather right next to me. Hey, Heather.
Hi, Tamara. Thank you so much for having me today. Or I'm having you or whatever. But
It's
this is
Inception.
all just a big collaboration between your community and mine. And I just want to give a shout out to my Make It Your Lettering Year students and Tech Host Academy and Level Up Your Lettering. We've got 3 classes going on right now, and they're all interested in this session for lots of different reasons. So thank you for having me on here, and thanks for trying out the Neuland Orbit.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. I'm super excited. I sent some information out in my newsletter last week, letting everybody know that we'd be trying some new tools this week just to see how it goes. So yeah, Heather's already let us know it's going to be the Neuland Orbit. So it's this cool. I know it looks like a futuristic space device. It looks really cool, but we're gonna be using this today to create some cool circular calligraphy. And for anyone who doesn't know, Heather designed this. Like, it's not just a product that she's promoting. She actually designed this snazzy, cool device. So everybody give her like thumbs up, raise the roof for Heather for making such a cool device for all of us to use. Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you, Tamara. And I have to say, I've taken a couple of your classes, and whenever you letter in the round, I'm always thinking, I've got to get an orbit in Tamara's hand. So I was very happy that you received it and that you were able to geek out on it. And now today we get to play with it.
Yeah, super exciting. Super exciting. So I'll say hi to Leanne too, and Carla. Great to see everybody again. Lorraine, Aries, it's great to see you. And Anne, hey Anne, it's been a long time since I've chatted with Anne too from Colorado. So
Hi,
fantastic.
Anne.
So who's ready to start doing some orbit lettering, Calligra orbiting? Let's call it that maybe.
Calligra orbiting. Oh,
Calligra
that's a
orbiting.
hashtag, I think.
For anyone who's been a member of the live streams before, you know I invent words regularly. And so as I switch over to the overhead view, turn on the additional light, you should start to see my desk. And then hey, me and Heather are still here in the bottom corner of the screen. So you still have us here. So as we get started, let's make sure everything is in super focus. Actually, we'll zoom out at the beginning just so that everybody can see. All right, so this is the orbit. This is the cool device that we'll be using today, and I will be creating some fun circular calligraphy art using this device. So I'll start just with a quick walkthrough. It's got a cool little, so it's entirely collected and held together, and it's got this awesome handle, so you can carry it with you everywhere, which is fantastic. And then it's got all of these cool spinny circles in the middle. And as I unscrew the centerpiece, I can get access to all of the orbit fun. So it's even got a ruler, which is super handy for measuring things out. I'll be using this today in addition to another ruler. And then obviously it's got all of these little circles that you can use for just creating circular designs and all sorts of amazing, you can use it to document a meeting, or Heather does a lot of these where she'll live document meetings. You can use them to create art, just super flexible. And I'm excited to be using and playing around with these today. But I thought before we dive into making circles, like I mentioned in my newsletter last week, we'll talk a little bit about circles and explain some of the geeky goodness as far as how we can use circles and measure some things and just do some, I call them calligulations or calligraphy calculations to figure out some numbers. So I refer to a lot of these terms quite a bit. And I'm going to use some scratch paper here. But I thought it would be good maybe to back up and just explain to everybody what these terms refer to, or what they actually mean that I refer to so regularly. So we're just going to do some rough, sorry, let me get my tools here. We're just going to do some rough rough work here. I'm going to zoom in a bit so I can see a little bit more closely. Okay, so I'm just going to do some rough sketches and just explain a few of the terms just so that everybody's clear what we're talking about. And these will help you as you start to create circular designs to keep from having to use maybe more analog or time-consuming approaches. Like, I know I've heard people that'll use a string to measure things out and then not pointing any fingers or anything like that.
That's me. That's me. I'm always using the string
to measure things, but we'll hopefully help you come up with some other techniques for doing some measurements. So I'm gonna start just by drawing a simple circle. We're not gonna do any calligraphy fun yet, and then we'll work with some terminology. All right. So I've just drawn a circle using the inner ring, right? Just with a pencil. And I'm going to just measure the 2 points from the top to the bottom. The guide handily gives me these vertical lines here that will help me find the center, right? And then as I rotate it this way, I can find the center also using these 2 lines here. This one on the right side and this one on the left side. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little point here. And I'm going to add a little point here. And I'm going to move my guide. And you can see I've got, right now, it almost looks like a little bit of a, kind of like a crosshairs or something like that. So if I take these lines here, all right, and just draw a line here from the top to the bottom. And then here from these 2 sides, from the left to right. Great to see you again too, Anne. I see the comment. And then go left to right. So now where the 2 line up, that is the center of my circle, right? So this ends up being a very helpful reference point for a lot of measurements that we'll use. And I'm going to do some math. I know that's scary, potentially terrifying, but I promise we'll make it manageable. All right.
Well, luckily we're online, so we won't get any on us.
That's right. We can stay clean from all of the math gunk that will end up getting on us.
You won't get any math on us.
All right. So if I take the center of the circle and then just measure out to any edge, right? So starting from the middle, measuring out to any edge, I'm going to make that line. I'm just going to use a red pen for now. Okay, so if I take just this little line here, if you can see where I'm starting where the center is, this line here, that's the radius, okay? So I'm going to write out that word. That's the radius. Hopefully you can see that okay. All right, so and it's the same anywhere. It could be diagonally. It could be any point on that circle. It's going to be the exact same measurement. The same line just rotates around. So that this radius, which usually goes by the letter R, is a very handy measurement to help us calculate some other things. For those of us who are math nerds and geeks and stuff. Okay, so you've maybe also heard of the word diameter. So the diameter is just all the way across from these 2 lines. Let me scooch over so you can see. All right, so if I take a line here and manage to pull the pen out of the cap and do 1 line from top to bottom. So now that vertical line all the way from here to here, that here, I'm going to do it sideways. That's the diameter. Okay, that will often go by the letter D in formulas. Okay, so diameter is here to here. And the radius just from the middle to one of the edges. Okay, so why are these measurements helpful? Because now if I use this, and I often will use this to determine the size of a circle, I can just use this as a reference point to figure out everything else. I can figure out the distance around it. So this distance around the circle here, okay, and this would be going all the way around. That's the circumference. If you can read my handwriting there. So going all
Looks
the way
great.
around.
And if
That's
anybody's already lost with the math part, come back because we're going to do some lettering. So don't let
yeah,
this stop you.
yeah. Well, I will get into some lettering. I just wanted to explain these basics because I'll be I'll use these to explain. One of the questions I get all the time: how do you size the circle? Right? How do you figure out what size to make it? And I'm going to explain a little bit of how I do that. How I do that calculation. A simplified version of my very nerdy approach that I use all the time.
Love it.
And again, feel free to ask us any questions in the chat. I'm always super excited to hear what people want to know. Okay, so if you didn't guess already, the diameter is just double the radius, right? So we're going to use an equation now. Don't be scared. But the diameter D is the same thing as 2 times, I can use an X, times R, right? So I can figure out the diameter just by doing 2 times R. Because it's just twice that radius, right? Now, here's going to be our first formula. Our second formula, our first one, that's going to be using some new concepts. But we're going to also be using this fun constant called pi, which sounds like a delicious dessert, but is also a mathematical term. And pi is just think of it as a number. It's nothing more fancy than that, right? Just think of it as a number. It's got a whole bunch of decimals. Easiest, you can think of it as being very close to the number 3. 3.14 is a little bit more precise, and it's got, again, I think an infinite number of decimal numbers after that. But this number helps us do some calculations with circles. Okay, so to calculate the circumference, all I need to do is take 2 times the radius, right? And then multiply it by pi. And that'll give me the circumference. Okay, so what I do when I'm doing my calculations is I'll use the radius as my measurement to figure out the size of a circle. And that's just one easy straight line measurement, right? I don't have to always calculate the circle. If I have a radius that's bigger, then it'll be a bigger circle. So this number is going to get bigger and this circumference is going to get bigger. So it's easy for me to calculate that. Another way to remember this is just pi d, right? Or d times pi, the diameter, because that 2r is the same thing as d, right? Just like we set up here, the diameter. So that's also equal to this guy, the circumference. Okay, so that right here is really the key for what I use to do a lot of calculations for circles. Okay, so I'll describe at a high level the approach that I use to kind of do some circle sizing, and I'll give you a simple version to understand how I go about doing this. See, Lorraine is saying, I feel smarter already.
I was going to say the same thing. I literally feel smarter just having sat into this just a few minutes already. Thank you,
You're all
Lorraine.
geniuses. Congratulations, you have your math degrees now. You've learned.
And this is Lorraine's question. She's always asking me, how do I write in a circle? How do I write in an arch? And this is it. Here you are. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, perfect. So this is just to help you with the measurements, right? Like, so that I don't, because one technique, right, for figuring out how to fit something in a circle is to write it in a straight line, right? And then this straight line will end up getting wrapped around this circle, right? So as I take this straight line, like if you imagine it's a string, and I take it down and then wrap it around the circle, that's one method for figuring out how long of a circle to make, right? So now if we use some math, right, now we're going to get even crazier. So if I take my line, let's just say my line's length is the letter, we'll call it A. Okay, just to pick any letter of the alphabet. And A means it's, I don't know, however long this ruler is. It's like, we'll call it, for easy math, we'll call it 20 centimeters. I don't know how many people are from Canada or elsewhere. I know there may be at least one. So we'll go with metric. Or I could go with inches as well.
I think metric's good.
Metric's good.
Yeah,
so
our rulers usually have both, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if I go back here, right, and I know my A is 20 centimeters, so this line of this length is this, I'm also going to say, well, I know I want this to wrap around my circle, So what did we say that thing was? All right, that was this guy here, the circumference, right? So I can say my circumference is also 20 centimeters, right? Look at us using math like we're just super scientists. I call us calligologists sometimes, or
Here we go.
we're getting into making up more words, but that 20 centimeters
I love it.
is now my circumference. All right, so I'm now going to give you a formula to figure out how big, like just what radius to make, and then you can use a protractor or whatever you need to actually create your circle. All right, so now if I know my circumference is 20, right? I'm sorry, let me put it on this end. So this is all equal to 20. So if you remember just a little bit of algebra, I'm going to just put my 2, my r, and my pi here again. So to figure out this r, I just have to divide the 20 by everything. So I take this and move it underneath here. This is algebra. Take the 2, also move it underneath there. Just I'm sliding everything underneath to get just to leave my r on this side. So the radius of the circle that I need is 20 centimeters divided by 2, which just came from over here, times pi, which is just a number, 3, right? So it's basically 20 divided by 6, just to use simple numbers, right? So if I say this is just a 3, then it's 2 times 3 is 6 at the bottom. This circle here will end up becoming close to 6. So it's just 20 divided by 6. And that's going to be in the neighborhood of 3. Right? 3 times 6 is 18, so it's a little bit more than 3. So if I make a circle with a radius of 3 centimeters, I'll end up with a 20 centimeter circumference. See? You guys are all genius math experts now. Okay, so that is how I'm often doing, like working out based on a radius, how big a circle needs to be. Okay, so what I did, so I'm going to give you the explanation for kind of the easy approach to doing this. I came up with a far more complicated approach that uses spreadsheets and stuff that I go over a little bit more in the Circles on Steroids class, the actual workshop that I do. But just so that you understand, if you've gone through any of the alphabet or watched my YouTube video about the Blackletter alphabet, you know that a lot of the letters kind of fit within a vertical rectangle. So if I just use that rectangle and pick letters that fit in it, like A, B, C, D, E, the letter M is a little wider, right? The letter W is a little wider than that. So I wouldn't use those, but just pick words that use like bad, B-A-D, or ab. Dad is another one, right? Those all, unfortunately, mom uses M's, which are a little wider, but dad would work. So I just took a circle and then just started to write out a word using, obviously, Blackletter. Calligraphy could be O, 1 would fit, right? Add 2. Just for fun, picked words that used this one kind of unit and wrote them all the way around one circle, right? So then, after that, I just did a count. So I just said, okay, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. I just counted the number of letters that I was able to fit around this circle. Okay, so let's just say, if I do this here, for easy math, let's say it's 50, just for fun, right? So I was able to fit 50 words. I'm going to zoom in again. So I was able to fit 50 words into a circle that had a radius of, let's say 10 centimeters. Okay, so just like if you were cooking, if you were cooking, you might, if you needed 2 cups for one recipe for 2 people, you might need 4 cups for a recipe for 4 people, right? It's just a ratio. So if I needed to fit in 100 words, sorry, that's 1,000. I promise I do know numbers. That's 100 words.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah, if I did need 100 words, right? Or sorry, let me turn these into letters. So letters, right? I would just need to double this, right? So I would need a circle with 20 centimeters. So
So this is massive. I just have to say, Tamara, your geek is really showing.
I would imagine. That I always tell everybody I'm a nerd and a geek, and I'll explain. I came up with this approach because I would get asked for like to do commissions for people to write stuff in circles, and I would have to write the circle like 10 times before I could figure out how big it would be, right? So I needed a way to come up with an approach that I could do it a little bit more, like without even having to write it one time. I could at least get a ballpark of what size of circle that I need, right? So I would use an approach like this to be like, okay, if I was able to fit 50 letters in a 10 centimeter circle, if what they need me to write is 100 letters, I know I need a 20 centimeter circle. And that gets me in the right ballpark right off the bat, right?
That's great.
Without having to, I haven't even had to write anything one time, right? In a straight line.
Yeah. So you go into it feeling confident that you know that it's going to be really close. We're talking about within what, 90% accuracy?
It can be very close. Yeah, exactly. The more you do this, yeah, exactly. Like most of the time on my streams, if anybody who's seen some of my old streams, this is, I use a more complicated approach, but this is kind of the guts of that approach. And I'll start just with a circle, right? And then I'll start writing some letters, or I'll start writing the quote that I planned. And most of the time, I'll come within one letter, or like a couple of letters. So,
and when you're getting closer, if you need to make something just a slightly wider, either in spacing or your optical width. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
Or thinner. Yeah. Or more narrow. Okay.
So that was a little bit of a primer. Heather had mentioned that there would be some people that were interested in a little bit of math and knowing behind the scenes how things work. I hope that wasn't too bonkers for everybody, and maybe you'll have the video afterwards.
Exactly.
But I promise it's not that hard. I'm trying to explain it quickly. Obviously, we're live, and we do want to get to some calligraphy. Usually in a workshop, I'd spend as much time as anybody needs to really get it, but here's the primer if you need. I'll just leave this up for a second and then
That's excellent. Thank you, Tamara. And this video is going to remain on your channel. So you can always, those who are watching can always come back and check it out. So you've got that. And now comes the fun.
Yes. So now we'll get to some fun stuff. All right.
So we have a question from Lorraine. Are you indicating that most of that lettering style is 10 centimeters wide? And I'm going to let you answer this, but of course you'd have to measure your own lettering style to figure out, what's going to fit in that space.
Yeah, exactly. So it will need to be usually for a consistent alphabet, and it will need to be consistent for your writing, right? Like different people write in different ways. Let me grab.
Yep. And this is going to be a great challenge for me because I teach probably well over a dozen different lettering styles, whereas Tamara teaches Blackletter, and he has this I got to tell you, I've taken a couple of his classes, and he's helped me tremendously. But now I have to go through and say, okay, what size and marker and everything am I doing and the lettering style to be able to fit around an orbit? So I got something to do all summer long, a lot of math.
So yeah, just for anybody who's curious, like I obviously just used an orbit to draw this circle, right? So now I could easily just measure what the radius of that orbit is, right? Just take this, it's 5 centimeters, just like that. So I know this orbit is 5 centimeters. So now I can use this, and if I measure out my letters, I'll have a pretty good idea of what I could fit using this orbit for the style of lettering that I do. So that it just makes it, you can absolutely do a lot of other approaches and techniques and stuff like that. This just helps with giving you a starting point, right? Starting from like, I have no idea how big to make this circle. It gives you a place to be like, I can get pretty close, and I'll maybe just make it a little bit bigger just to make sure I can fit. And then you can play with the white space. But to Lorraine's question, like I can write a Blackletter alphabet. I'm going to zoom in and pray that the camera just needs to focus on something. All right. So I can do a Blackletter alphabet where I write like a very tall and narrow, right? Like that could be a letter N. That's super tall and narrow, right? I can also do a Blackletter alphabet where I go like super wide and use a like some kind of a letter N that looks like that. That's wide, right? So the circle, your measurement here, this I could fit 50 letters into 10 centimeters, will be dependent on the alphabet. And you do need to write fairly consistently wide, right? That's why I mentioned this single unit square here. So as long as I'm writing my piece and I write an A here like this, and then I write a B next to it, and I'm fairly consistent in the widths, right? If I write the word ABBA or something, right? And I don't just go crazy with the next B and go like super wide. The technique will work, right? As long as I'm consistent with my lettering. But if I start to vary it, then obviously that approach won't work as well. But most of the time, if you're writing something for somebody, right, or for a piece, something, your lettering you're gonna want it to look fairly consistent. You're not going too abstract. All right. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so I'm gonna start drawing a circle, and I'm gonna do this one. We'll just do it freehand for fun. Like I'm not gonna worry about centering it because that'll just take a little bit more time. I'm sure everybody wants to get to some calligraphy fun, right? So I'm just gonna place it wherever I want. Okay, and that could be could be at the top of my sheet if I wanted to do some kind of a unique design. Maybe we'll do that. Yeah, we'll just put it here at the top. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it here. I'll zoom out so you can see the page. Okay, and I'm gonna put it just here at the top of my page. I've done some designs like that before. And while I'm doing this, while I'm laying this out, let me know if you have any color preference for the calligraphy that you want to see today. So I've got a few inks next to me. These are a few cartridges that I'll stick into the parallel pen. So I've got green, blue,
What options? Yeah.
green, blue, purple, and red. And then I usually do a dipping color too. So think about 2 colors while I line this out.
And what dipping colors do we have?
Oh,
what would you prefer?
So many. I usually use yellow. It's one of my favorite colors for dipping, but
Okay.
I've got a bunch next to me.
If you're going to go with yellow, what do you suggest? I would stay analogous, but we're seeing purple in the chat.
I actually really love purple. If purple is showing up
Yeah.
in the chat, that's great selection.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, purple and yellow. I don't know how purple and yellow will do, but
it's going to come out.
like we might make mud.
Great. Well,
it's overwhelmingly purple in the chat. Yeah.
These may be some of my my fun community member friends.
Yeah.
No, I'm a big fan of the purple. Okay, so I did the same thing as I did before, except I just drew lines on both the outer and the inner edge. Okay. Let me make sure I'm not lying. Yep, there we go. So now I basically took the orbit, plopped it on the page, drew a circle, used the little guidelines here on the left and the right, top and bottom, to add my little marks to find the center. Okay. And now I'm going to grab the ruler, and I'm not going to actually draw lines all the way through. I'm just going to go far enough so that I can connect the center. Right? I'll just go up here. So there's my center point, right? Can everybody see? Okay, now I'll draw some lines to help me with the lettering, and I'm just gonna run them all through that center.
And keep in mind too that there's some lines on the orbit.
Yeah, there absolutely are. There absolutely are. So I could have just as easily used these little hatches or these little lines on the inner and outer edges on the orbit too, to help draw these little center lines as well. So here I'll just draw a few of those to help as well.
Either way.
So both techniques work. So that it would be, I would definitely use the orbit lines if I didn't want to take the time to find the center. Those lines that are on the tool itself would be super helpful if you're just trying to find those on the fly, or even just want to do like a specific segment, right? Like it would actually.
And that's helping you with the slope, right? To make sure that you are staying true to the center.
Yeah, that's right. As I write the lettering, that's exactly right. So let's say, Heather just prompted me with a fun idea. Let's say we wanted to draw a unique shape. The orbit's going to help me because everything is evenly spaced out. I can just draw a line here, and then a line here and here, right? Just, oh, sorry. Let me make sure that it's aligned up center. Okay, like this. So I'm going to use these two. So I'm going to draw a line here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase a bit at the bottom, and then we'll have kind of a cool design similar to something that I've done before. So if I use these two areas here, right, and I consider that part the end of my circle, right, and I'm just drawing guides now just to kind of help. I can even create an interesting design where I erase this bottom part. Right now it's just kind of mostly an arc. Okay, so it creates an even kind of a unique shape. It's not where it's not even a complete circle. So you can get all sorts of creative and have tons of fun. All right, so there we go. There's like a basic layout to help me start my lettering. So I believe purple was the winner of the tool.
Purple
so,
and green dip. I don't know if you can do a purple and a green.
Purple and green. Interesting. Yeah, I can. Guys are getting some creative colors, but some of the most fun things that we've created have been on these streams where we pick colors together. So I'm loading up my parallel pen for anybody who doesn't have one or hasn't used one before. Just it comes with a couple of cartridges. Purple is not one of them. You have to buy it as a separate set, but just stuck it in the back. Screw the pen back together, and then I'll just use my scratch page here. Usually just shake the pen a bit to get the ink flowing until I start to see some ink coming out of the tip, just like that. Super easy. Okay, so do we really want to go with green?
I'm going to say let the artist decide. You'll know what's going to look best and also what's close and on hand.
All right, maybe we'll stick with yellow today then, just because it's right here next to me.
If it's right there.
Maybe we can come back and do a stream or something with purple and green, because I'm curious now.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just getting my ink, my dipping ink. All right, so also curious, does anybody have a quote?
Oh my goodness,
they would
you
like
are
to see
really
me start to letter. We're just gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun. We use the orbits to get our layout together.
Yeah. And then you left that side open for what again?
This is just to create kind of a different design. I could put some kind of a graphic element down the middle. I could actually put a straight bit of text coming out of the bottom here.
And how are you going to do the math for that? How do you account for that?
That gets into some more fancy math.
Okay.
But there is a way.
Use your magic. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the quick version, I would just measure that angle here.
I don't know if this is too much of a quote, but we have one from Anne. Creativity is magic. Don't examine it too closely.
I love it.
And Francesca's saying lettering inception.
Lettering inception.
Because we've been saying that. Yeah.
Let's do both because we've got about 30 minutes left. So I'll fit as much as I can into the circle because I didn't obviously do the calculations to size for this one, but
okay.
I thought it'd be fun to just get some quotes from everybody. Okay, so lettering inception and then creativity is magic. We'll work on those. Yeah. So but again, to measure that out, just use the angle and then it's whatever fraction of 360. I could help with the math, maybe if anybody's curious.
No. Actually, I think at this point we're done with math. We just want to see you letter.
Fantastic. So here, can you see the cool color blend?
Uh-huh.
So this is purple and yellow. Let's zoom in a little bit more.
What?
Let's make it a little bit brighter. So I'm dipping in an acrylic ink for this one.
Wow. And what size is this? This is a Pilot Parallel pen. What size?
This is the 4.5 millimeter pen for anybody that's curious. So 4.5 millimeters is the size of the pen. And I just found that was a pretty good size for these orbits. You could even get away with the 6 millimeter one, because that's a pretty beefy size pen. So let's do lettering. Lettering inception. I love it that we ended up lettering this. So here. So
I think everyone's homework is to do the math. And if you post it on Instagram, you can tag us.
Absolutely. And let me know what you come up with. So we'll do lettering. So E. Does anybody have any other questions as I'm starting to work my way around?
Yeah. What questions do people have?
I'm just periodically coming back in here for a dip of the yellow.
Yeah, the comment is that it looks like a copper color. It's beautiful. The purple almost looks red.
Yeah, that's what I found with this. So get a cool eye in here. And then sometimes I'll just let I'll keep going without dipping for a little bit, just to let a little bit more of that purple color come through, which ends up coming out a little bit more red. Okay, there's a G. And I'm going fast. When you're doing your art, you take your time. You don't have to go fast like me. So there's lettering. Hopefully I spelled it right, and I do. For anyone who's been on live streams before, I usually leave the tops of the T's and stuff till the end to add some fun flourish elements.
Great. And when you're doing this, I mean, you're just going right out of your head. You know these words really well, but do you usually have it written out in front of you so that you don't miss a letter or misspell something?
No, most of the time I just go straight out of my head. Of course, if I'm doing something that's a commission piece or something like that for somebody, I will plan it much more. But for the most part, just when I'm creating for myself or for fun, I'm just freewheeling and having a good time. I try not to plan too much because I feel like that sometimes adds some pressure to what you're doing,
Right.
And can almost take away from the creativity and just kind of rolling with what happens.
Yeah, I think we did enough math already.
Has everybody seen enough math for today? I'm curious. I actually am very curious. What did everybody think of the math? Was it too much?
Are you ready to do it? I would say, are you going to apply it? Yeah.
Did you enjoy the math part, or was it too much like being in school again? Right. See, I almost misspelled there. So instead, I did the. I'm gonna just bring it down, and we'll work with this. It's always the fun of talking while you're writing.
I love it. We've got the spectrum. Some people struggled with it. Some people laughed or loved it. It was magic. Some others are saying, too much for my brain. I think it's too much for me right now. But once I have my project in mind, and I know what tool I'm going to use and what I'm going to write, I think I'll be able to use it and apply it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things when you go to use it, it'll end up being more helpful than just listening to a diatribe on circle radiuses and diameters and stuff like that.
Right. That was good.
On a Tuesday at lunch.
Yeah. So we do have a question. Lorraine is asking, no space between words.
Yeah, that's
great question. Do you put spaces between words?
Most of the time I don't, because I kind of like that fluid look of having the art go all the way around. You absolutely could, though. It's just a personal choice.
Yeah, and so this is really key, because if you're making a piece of art, then it's really about the design and the beauty of it, right? But for those in the room that are visual practitioners, if you're wanting to put something in a circle that's readable, you definitely want to have very clear letters and spacing so that it's readable to your audience.
I absolutely second what Heather just said exactly. I tend to, personally, I kind of enjoy the art look of it as opposed to just strict readability, and that's kind of why I go for more abstract, and like the stuff on the wall behind me, I like doing abstract pieces and stuff. All right, but great question.
Yeah.
So I'm
Janet's
already on.
saying, I'm not sure when you know the length how to figure out drawing the circle. So I think that's a great question. We're kind of using the orbit because it's already an existing circle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're saying we've got this, then you can determine how long that is, and then you can write something out and see if you need to make any adjustments to the width or what you're writing in order to fit within that. So we kind of went from the orbit as a tool, and it already exists. Whereas the orbit does come in, I think, 5 or 6 different sizes, so you've got some choices there. To go the other direction, do you usually do it that way, Tamara, or how do you do it? Because this was definitely tool dependent in this case.
Yeah, I would use I would figure out what I need to write, and then work out a circle, and then use perhaps a different tool to write the circle. But like in this case, the math that we did at the beginning would help you fit or identify what size text you could fit with any of these sizes, right? Like it does come in multiple sizes, so you would have a jump from this size to this size that's a little bit bigger, but you could fit a variety of different sized quotes from, very tiny with this little guy to these bigger ones, all the way to the biggest one here, right? So
yeah, I love it. And we've got Renee is saying in the chat how she would do it. So we've got a math whiz here, and I love it because you showed your work, and I love that you showed us how to be able to do that, Tamara. So
awesome.
and the orbit comes in 1 inch. They change every inch or 2.5 centimeters. So at least you're within that range as well. And Debbie's asking a question: acrylic ink to dip in, does it gunk the parallel pen? Great question.
Great question. And yes, it will if you leave it for a very long time. But if you I have it handy. So when you buy the parallel pen, don't lose this little guy that comes with the pen. If you can see this little slip.
Yeah.
That little slip is meant for, you'll stick it between, let me try to zoom out, stick it between the plates, and then you just can slide it back and forth, and then clean between the plates. So as it starts to gunk up, I believe that is the technical term, the tip of the pen. That's the one I used.
Yeah.
As it does gunk up or clog the tip of the pen, you can use that tool to help clear it out. And then I'll also usually have a little container of water next to me. Like you can see here, I was able to pull it fast, right? I'll just dip the pen in there, wipe it off with a Kleenex or a tissue or something like that, clean between the plates, and then usually I'm good to go. I have a lot of these pens, and I do a lot of dipping in acrylic inks, and I haven't had any one of them completely fail on me.
And sometimes the fiber of the paper can also get inside of there too. So you want to clean it not just when you're using like an acrylic ink, but probably between projects. But what kind of paper are you using here?
This one I'm using Strathmore Bristol paper, and it's the smooth surface, this one. I found that this bleeds less than the other one, but this is the paper that I'm using for anyone who's curious.
Yep. So chances are that if there are any fibers that are coming up off of that, they are really fine. So you're not going to see them gunk up.
Yeah. And I don't find it to be that, this paper to be that fibrous. I actually find it to be quite smooth, and it doesn't really get into if I'm dragging the pen very firmly, maybe I'll lift up some of the paper, but otherwise not too bad.
Yeah. And then how long would you say that you can write with the pen before it starts to gunk up? How often do you think you clean it?
I tend to, so I'll clean it after every session. So I don't need to necessarily, it depends on the ink, right? Every ink will perform a little bit differently. But an ink like this one that I like to use a lot, this yellow ink, which is just Liquitex yellow ink. I find I can go through a whole session of writing and not really have to clean it. But before I do, close out for the day and finish, I will tend to clean it then. Just dip it in the water, run the little cleaning strip through the tip, and then it's generally good to go. All right, so I'm almost through with my little design here. Again, I'm moving fast. Usually by the
You
end
are
here,
going fast.
by the end here, your palm will start to potentially go over your work. So just be careful. I'm going fast just because you probably don't want to wait for 2 hours for the ink to dry. So I'm just going to finish. We'll do that with the A. Okay, we'll just call that good. Calligraphy, we did lettering, inception, and creativity is Ma.
I love it. I love it.
So
That's
yeah, after that
great.
I'll just come in and add some of the other, like I'll add the lines to the T's and stuff like that, and add any other visual elements that I want. I'll often come in and add a little mark here in the center too. Finish off the E's. So yeah, this is the idea, and then now I've left. If I zoom out, so I've left a kind of a cool opening there in the center,
Beautiful.
which I could then add I could add more text, and it could be horizontal like this, right? Like, or this entire thing could be a C, right? Like this could be
Wow.
the letter C for something else. So you can have so much fun just playing around with these designs and shapes, and adding
This is
elements.
beautiful, Tim. Yeah, this is beautiful. I'm loving it. Any more questions for Tamer?
Yeah, let me know. I'll keep lettering, but let me know if you have any other questions in the meantime. But you can see we created this orbit parallel pen ink cartridge. It's just a pilot ink cartridge, and then dipping ink. Not complicated. So yeah, let me know any questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep on lettering. I do love the feedback too. It's been awesome to hear from everybody.
Carla's loving your work.
Thank you, Carla.
Yep.
Great to see you again too. And I'm working away my round, just adding little elements that I feel make things look a little bit more interesting and fun.
Now, of course, you're a master at this, but in the early days, would you have needed to draw a line in the center to make sure that all of these, I don't know what you call them, I call them spurs when I'm doing it with my wacky Western lettering style, but
I like
would
it.
you need to draw a line to go in the middle?
I honestly, even when I was starting, I would just do them kind of freehand, and it's actually a really good question because that's the reason I leave them to the end. Is if I do it every time I do a letter, I'll probably end up putting them a little high or a little low every time.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm just doing them all together, right, I can just keep going in a circle and just rotate the page, and I can generally put them in like a close to the same spot, right, each time. That way it remains consistent. So a lot of these things that I do, leaving things out to the end, just help me with making decisions as I finish up a piece, or help me maintain consistency as I'm doing something. So in this case, it's just about consistency. And I'll emphasize again, I'm going fast here, so it's a little sloppy, but you have all the time in the world when you're creating your stuff. So just relax and have fun. Don't rush. And you'll be surprised. Like I've not yet had a person ever come up to me and go, "Well, this one appears to be 2 millimeters higher than the one next to it."
Yeah,
So
right. Who's really looking at that? Yeah.
Yeah, like people aren't really looking at the details. You see things because you created it, and we're all a little bit self-conscious about stuff that we make. But just keep going with it and have fun.
This is so beautiful. So we've got great compliments in the chat. I did want to ask you to show us some of your examples. I know that people would love the how-to, but we've only got just a few minutes left. But I can point people to your circles on steroids class. Janet's asking, how would you then add a second circle, as you've done in some of your other beautiful pieces? I think that's something you cover in the class, right?
I sure do.
Yeah. And then also, Horst is asking, can you tell us about techniques for adding shadows to your letter to give it a 3D effect? So again, don't have time for the how-to today,
I
but
know.
if you have some examples to show us, tease us with a little bit.
I don't have any 3D ones handy, but there are tools and there are ways, and I do have a lot of fun doing that too, just because I think that giving it a little bit of shading adds a lot of it makes it very interesting, right? It does make it look like it's coming off the page a bit. So I would say quick version, just think of where your light source is coming from, top right, shade in the opposite direction is kind of the quick version of that. And then here's some examples, like some of these were done on live streams, at least started on live streams. So if you're curious, you can go back and look on my live streams and see some of these that started. This one is actually a pretty friendly quote, even though it looks very ghoulish, but it was done right around Halloween and a Friday the 13th. And it just, like, somebody suggested, well, why don't we do a Halloween themed thing? And so we just ended up doing a ghoulish looking theme.
Wow. And you added the yellow and the red later, right? So you actually added the background after you did the lettering. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll go in and do outlines. Here's one it's made of a Harry Potter quote, and it's got metallic ink on black paper. And then I added some lightning bolts and stuff. It's I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Is that what that says?
Yep. So here's the ISOLEM. I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good.
That's
so that
fantastic.
was a fun one. And this is the one I was telling you that was off by one letter. So I didn't do any practice. It says I'm up to no goo. So you can have fun with that. And then here's just showing you can play with other papers. It's almost
like you could have almost bitten the bow on that I and made it an ID, but
yeah, I could. I thought about it. I was like, we'll just have fun. We were streaming on that one too. And then this one, just to show you, have fun with ink combinations. This is using like a tan paper or a gray paper, and then I actually used black ink and dipped in what's it called, a pearlescent ink, and it creates like this crazy look where it's gold if you reflect it from sunlight, but it's black and gray just from other angles. So you can get it's incredible the fun that you can have with these. This is actually another one that started on a live stream that I had no plans on that one, and we all just kind of picked the colors and got that look. And then this is an example of a little bit of a fancier design where you can start to overlap circles.
Oh, wow. Yep. So here's that second circle, third circle as a part of this.
Yeah,
this is
interweaving
gorgeous.
And stuff. So you can do all sorts of different designs and things.
And so you have a PhD in math to be able to do that one?
Just a lot of patience.
I'd say so.
A lot of patience.
So. Those are gorgeous. Thank you so much, Tamer. For those of you that just want to know, I put Tamer's his class Circles with Steroids in the chat in my class, but I'd love to find out from Tamer, what else do you have going on? Can you give us a little inside peek of what you've got going on coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can actually bring us back to the side-by-side if since we're getting close to finishing up. So, hey, we're back here. I'll turn off my extra light. So, yeah, this summer I'm actually working on launching a Intro to Procreate class. So expect it to happen most likely in August. So I'll be doing a Procreate class. You can head to procreate101.com to sign up to get some info on that. So that one should be a lot of fun because you can do a lot of really fun stuff in Procreate. And I'm also working on launching my community, Calligraphy Friends. And you can get some more info and sign up to get notified about that at calligraphyfriends.com. And that's one where I'll be just basically pouring out everything that I know into that community, whether it's blackletter calligraphy, photography, photographing your work, video, all the stuff. Just
excellent. Yeah, this is so great. I can't wait. I can't wait for your community because I get the pleasure of meeting up with you, I don't know, a couple of times every couple of months and seeing how you work and picking your brain about some geeky things because I love geeking out. Tamer's one of the best to geek out on. So I was really excited to hear that you were going to have a community because I felt like now I'm going to have more access to you.
Oh, you're too kind.
That's exciting.
And likewise, Heather is fantastic for everybody that's tuning in. She's amazing, incredibly talented, real pro. She is an incredibly talented presenter, artist, you name, written books, all sorts of cool stuff.
Well, I'm loving seeing in the chat who are my students, and then of course I get to meet some new folks, and then I can see that we've got some shared friends as well. So I think we're all a fan of one another. So thank
Oh,
you so
that's,
much for that. Yeah,
and we've got,
but we also want to give away the orbit and the hexit. So
how could I forget? Yes.
yay!
So we've
And
got a couple
so
of boxes here.
we do, and Tamara's going to mail them to you. And so the hexit, which we haven't even really shown yet, but he's got one in
Which
his
is
hand, is a
here.
hexagon shape. And for those who might be wondering why do we have these things? And it's because I
Heather knows.
designed them back. Yeah, I designed them back in, I think, 2015 for visual practitioners. That's graphic recorders and graphic facilitators who need to draw circles and hexagons. If you've ever drawn one of those super fast on the fly, it's hard to do. And so I designed it so that we could do that. And the circles actually come with extra little, it's not math, but they're little symbols on it to create the perfect Venn diagram. And so, again, as soon as I saw Tamer lettering in the round, I thought, I've got to get I need to get a set in his hands, and we'd love to get a set in your hands. And so together, those two pieces are worth about $130. That doesn't count the shipping from Germany. But we'll ship it to you. If you could, so here's how you can win one. Is it's going to be the first person that signs up for both a class from Tamer and a class from me. It could be any class at all. And so I think I put our websites in the chat, but I'll do that again so that you have them. And I would say we'll just take a look and share notes over the next couple of days and see who is the first person, and we'll reach out to you and let you know, and then go from there.
Yeah, fantastic. And for me, and it could be anything in my shop, anything on my, because I've got some PROCREATE brushes and stuff. So yeah, that we'll definitely be keeping in touch, and we'll be sending a fun little surprise mail to. Here they are. They're all boxed up and ready to go. So we'll be sending out some fun surprises for somebody.
Yay. And for those of you who may have missed the math or need a review, again, this recording is going to be available for quite some time. And I know that I have a lot of really great friends here that are from my Make It Your Lettering Year class and Level Up Your Lettering. But I also want to put a shout out to my Tech Host Academy group. And I'm just going to throw that link in the chat as well. And that's for folks who love to geek out on the back end side and what it's like to do live streams like this, how to host in Zoom meetings, things like that. For those of you that I know that dialed in for that, I know you were watching Tamer very closely because he's going to be our guest speaker in June and tell us how he made this all happen.
Yeah. Yes, I'm excited to share some behind the scenes there too. Just it's a lot to figure out sometimes, and it can be intimidating, but you can do it. I promise, you can definitely do it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tamer, for lettering with us today and doing the hard math. Whew, I'm glad that we got that out of our system.
Hopefully nobody's head exploded. Hopefully you're all doing okay. But it was my pleasure. And thank you for joining me here too, Heather. We were talking before about how this is like it's Inception because we're not sure who's introducing who and who's who's hosting who. But again, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. Thank you for coming and joining the live stream here on the channel as well. And thank everybody that's here. Thanks for everybody who's liked the live stream as well. We love that, and who's left comments. It's been fantastic to have you all here. Thank you so much. Awesome. So we'll say bye for now then. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Happy lettering.
Bye-bye.